So Kanye West, after his interview with Alex Jones, which went super duper mega viral, where he talked, apparently the interview was 3 hours long, and he managed to say he loves Hitler and loves the Nazis like 712 times in that interview. This thing has spread far and wide, even though Alex is not on any of the main platforms anymore, but this interview still got out because it was just that big of a deal. Kanye decided to do another interview, and I think this was literally right after the Alex Jones interview because he's wearing the exact same thing. So he went from Alex's studio to the studio of Gavin McInnes, and we got more insanity from Kanye. Watch this.
So you're president of the United States. The Hitler thing does not hurt your campaign. First day
it helps my campaign.
Okay, it helps your campaign. Yeah. You're in office. It's day one, and someone walks in and they go, so what are we going to do about these Jews? What do you say?
What do you mean do about them? What do you
is there any action involved? Like they're overly represented in lots of people who don't believe in Christ. I would probably wager that in your average hospital in New York, maybe a third or less believe in Christ. So are you suggesting we get rid of 2/3 of the doctors?
Not get rid of, like not violently get rid of them.
Fire them?
I think that Jews are very intelligent, but they don't deserve to be in charge of everything because they don't put Christ in.
But how do you legislate that?
They need to work for Christians. Jews should work for Christians. I'll hire a Jewish person in a second. If I knew they weren't a spy and I could look through their phone and follow them to their house and have a camera all in their living room.
I don't think that the Jews are particularly ethno-masochistic. If you look at all the blowback to Ye, they're very defensive, they're very paranoid, you could say, almost pathologically paranoid about threats to their well-being. I agree with you that liberalism is a poison. I'm not a liberal, and I think that liberalism has poisoned the well for white people, but if you look at white kids, there's nothing, I don't think, intrinsic in white people that makes them hate themselves. Like when I was a kid, kids loved Hitler. In the sense that we see the videos and we see the propaganda and the symbols, and there's something compelling about it just on an aesthetic level.
What? I've never heard that before. When you were a little kid, like 8 years old, all your friends liked Hitler?
Well, maybe not 8 years old, but on 4chan and on the internet.
Okay, yeah.
Very
Teenage.
popular.
Blacks are overrepresented in violent crime. But when you meet an individual black person, you don't apply that. You start with a fresh slate every time you meet someone. Do you do that with Jews?
Nope.
This intervention isn't going very well.
There's a collusion of Jewish attorneys, managers, and everything else you can think of that they don't abort their children. They only marry within their tribe, right? And then they'll give America porn, not just black people, but poor white people and Mexican people. They use porn in wars. It's like a gas. We want to talk about gas chambers. This is the gas chamber. It's a silent killer, and it's legal, and they put it on every single block. And they use my ex-wife to sell it, and they want to dumb us down. It's awesome for a presidential campaign.
Yeah?
To have someone that's honest, that understands the state of the world, and that's ready to listen to what the American people need.
But Hitler's got a pretty bad reputation.
Well, who made that reputation? That was made by Jewish people.
Well, the murdering Jews was a pretty big part of his bad reputation.
Yeah, but some of it's incorrect. Also, the Holocaust is not the only Holocaust. So for them to take that and claim, we have abortion right now, that's eugenics, that's genocide. That's a Holocaust that we're dealing with.
I mean, where do you even begin, man? Notice the point at the end. Massive contradiction within that one point. And he said this on Alex Jones too. The Holocaust didn't happen. That's just factually incorrect. So he denies the Holocaust, then he goes on to say, but it's not the only Holocaust that happened. Other Holocausts happened. Well, wait, which is it? You got to pick one or the other. You got to say, okay, it happened, but a lot of other ones happened too, or it didn't happen, and it's a massive contradiction. He's just like, any argument he can come up with to shit on Jews more, he just does it. I mean, he's so far down the rabbit hole. He says, Gavin McInnes, and by the way, Gavin McInnes is pretty far right, and even he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. He says, well, Hitler has a bad reputation, and Kanye goes, well, that's because the Jews made that. The Jews made his reputation. I don't think the Jews made his reputation. I think everybody with fucking eyes and a bare minimum moral compass looked at the bodies stacked 100 feet tall, and they were like, Jesus Christ, whoever did this is an animal, is a monster, is a barbarian. Actually, yeah, the Jews made his reputation. That's why. It's those evil, conniving Jews that brainwashed you into disliking the mass murderer who tried to take over the world by force. The porn part, oh man. Now look, he says, I think he himself, he may have even admitted it, that he has a porn addiction. I'm not 100% sure on that, but there's this weird projection thing on everybody else. That like, since I couldn't handle that shit, nobody can handle that shit. And I hate to tell you, Kanye, but the overwhelming majority of Americans, first of all, like everybody watches porn, right? Unless they're like asexual, okay? And there's the tiny percentage that's asexual, but obviously over 90% of the country, not asexual. So everybody watches porn. And most people can handle it just fine. They're not jerking off all day to the point where they miss work or they forget to pick their kids up from school. Like, it just doesn't happen as much as you think it does because it may have impacted you. And the idea that you ban it, and he said Jews pushed porn on America in an attempt to, like, take down America. He said it's like the gas chamber. It's the silent killer. It's not even close to a killer. It's called, 7 minutes of pleasure. It's called a random Friday afternoon with nothing to do. Let me boost my serotonin levels a touch. It's so deranged in so many ways. You get the sense that he genuinely, like, fights himself on it, right? And it's amazing that every time he boots up that computer, he's going like, oh, the fucking Jews. It's the Jews that did this to me. Oh, like, Kanye, come on, man. Come on. But I love how his platform is Hitler was based and I'd like to ban porn. Yeah, that's going to be a winning platform. That's going to get him over 300 electoral votes. What are we talking about here? Gavin McGinnis made a phenomenal point there, and yay, it's totally right over his head. He goes, well, hold on now. Statistically, black people are overrepresented in violent crime. Does that mean that, you assume every black person is a criminal, or do you treat anybody that you meet with a blank slate? And then he's like, so do you have a blank slate when you meet a Jewish person? And Kanye goes, no. So in other words, anytime Kanye meets a Jewish person, he thinks like, well, there was that Jewish guy who did a fucked up contract with me and fucked me over, and this guy's to blame. It is like classic anti-Semitism, bigotry, xenophobia. I mean, it's so above and beyond in every single way. Nick Fuentes telling on himself there says, when I was a kid, kids loved Hitler. No, Nick. No, they didn't. Do you really think your weird, sheltered upbringing where you're on 4chan or 8chan that, like, this generalizes to a majority of Americans or even like a healthy minority of Americans? No, it was you freaks and maladjusted incel weirdos on these message boards that, oh, you like Hitler. And it's such an embarrassing admission too, because he goes on to say there's really something compelling on an aesthetic level. Oh, so a guy gave a speech and had some shiny bells and whistles around him and you nutting your pants over it? There's a lot of people that give speeches that don't end up committing genocide. It's just so embarrassing in so many ways. I've seen like every World War II documentary, ever. And I've seen the speeches. I've seen the marches. I've seen, everything that there is to see about Nazism and engineering and this and that. The idea that you just, fall head over heels in love with this genocidal maniac because, like, the uniforms were cool, right? Which, again, is what he's sort of hinting at here on an aesthetic level. It was so amazing. How embarrassing is that? How that's so not serious intellectually. He's asked point blank, what are we going to do about the Jews? And then Kanye answers, he thinks Jews shouldn't be allowed to be in charge of anything because they don't serve Christ. They have to work for Christians. And then he says, let's also like do mass surveillance of them. Yeah. Okay. All right, Kanye. I mean, how do you even respond to that? So what, like 70% of the country roughly are Christian? So what, you want to set up like a permanent underclass for everybody that's not Christian? And by the way, how do you determine who's one of the good Christians and who's one of the bad Christians, right? Because there are plenty of Christians who have healthy disagreement. You can find liberal Christians all over this country. You know, you could find conservative evangelical fundamentalist Christians all over this country. Do Catholics count? Because Nick Fuentes is a Catholic. Don't know if you know this, but historically, there's quite a disagreement between the Protestants and the Catholics. But Kanye, I don't know if he doesn't know the difference between, you know, a Protestant and a Catholic, but he's got Nick Fuentes there as a Catholic. Do you count them as part of the good Christians? All right, so let's assume for a second it's, okay, all the Christians are the quote-unquote good Christians. You have to call yourself that. Well, that's still like 30% of the country. Atheists, agnostics, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, whatever. They're all like, you can't have your own business. You know? You can't do your own thing. You have to work for a Christian. So, I mean, it's Hitler love and it's rampant theocracy. And of course, it's Kanye's interpretation of what his religion is that he wants to enforce. So like I said, ban porn. Well, what else? What else is in the Bible that you'd like to, you know, rigidly enforce on people? Did you know that there's a ban on shellfish in the Bible? Nobody's allowed to eat shrimp anymore? Is that something that Kanye would implement? Obviously, he's deeply, deeply anti-abortion, even though there's a portion of the Bible that recommends abortion if your wife cheats on you. They talk about how she should drink bitter water, which is sort of like a poison that makes you miscarry, and her belly will swell. And if she does miscarry, aka have an abortion after she drinks the bitter water, then that wasn't your baby. That was the baby of the person she cheated with. This is in the Bible. They prescribe abortion at a certain point in the Bible. He doesn't fucking know that. He doesn't care. He needs meds. He needs meds. And then, of course, classic Kanye moment where he says he thinks the Hitler thing, quote, helps his campaign. Does he realize how many Americans died fighting Hitler? I think the number is 400,000 Americans died fighting the Nazi fascist scourge that was trying to take over the world. And by the way, they had succeeded in taking over most of Europe. And you think, what? People are going to be like, yeah, that's what I want. A guy who is literally with the enemy, with the face of pure fucking evil. Look, I mean, on the one hand, it's like everybody kind of wants to start ignoring Kanye, but on the other hand, he's still Kanye West. He's an A-plus list celebrity, and he's got incredible wide reach, and he's running for president, and he's going through a psychotic episode. We can refute his ideas while also stating the obvious, which is, hey, dude, for the love of God, please take your medicine. Again, the most ironic thing is he keeps going after this doctor, this therapist, who prescribed him medicine for his bipolar disorder. And it's like, that's the dude who was trying to fucking save you, bro. For real. He was trying to save you. If he took his lithium, the highs wouldn't be as high and the lows wouldn't be as low. And the period of depression that's coming for him is going to be astonishing. Because clearly he's on an insane manic trip where you get euphoria, delusions of grandeur, you think you're the best, you think you've never said a dumb thing in your life, you can't stop talking, all that. Well, the low is going to be just as low as the high is high. And so nobody around him is keeping it real with him. And I think he pushed everybody away who was close with him at one time. So it's a real sad thing to see. Just get on your medicine. That's all I can say. I'm ending it on a serious note here, but get on your medicine. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.